the next step is to prepare a few of our ingredients. We're going to get our oats prepared. We're going to measure out our fragrance oil, and we're also going to line our mold. Now, if this is not your first time making soap, these steps I usually do after I've already incorporated my lye with the water and gotten my oils prepared. But if this is your very first time making soap, it's a good idea to start with this step first, because then you won't be stressed out as the whole process and you feel like maybe you're running out of time to get things accomplished. So we're going to start with measuring out our oats. And in using oatmeal in this recipe, I usually always use the old-fashioned oats. They're the real whole oats. All the goodness of the grain is there. In fact, I might even mill my own oats. I have a flaker, and if you have the ability to get fresh rolled oats, that would be great too. And I just use my blender. I know some people will use a coffee maker. I find that, or the coffee grinder. I find that my coffee grinder, I burned out a couple of them. This does an easier job, and with the KitchenAid blender that I have, has a lifetime guarantee on the motor. So if I ever burn this one out, I get it replaced for free. So the first thing we're going to do is blend these oats. Editing a lot of this. See, I'm taking quite a bit of time with blending these oats because I want to get them down to a really fine powder that I'm then going to sift. Okay, it's really important to get this down to really fine powder and sift it. You can create an oatmeal-based soap using whole oats, but if you've ever tried a bar that has all whole oats in it that's been cut up, they're very scrubby and abrasive, and it can be almost like using sandpaper. Most of my customers don't prefer to use something that's scrubby. So the first few times I tried making something with scrubbies in it, I didn't realize how abrasive they were, and I made a coffee soap and used coffee grounds in it, and it was the worst soap I'd ever made. It was so scrubby. So now I take these oats and put them through the sifter. That way we get the benefit of all the really good nourishing properties of oatmeal in our bar of soap without it being quite so abrasive. And the little bits of this oatmeal powder that we're going to have will help with the lather and make a really nice lather as they use the soap. And I only need a half a cup, so I always take whatever is left over and store it in a baggie for the next time because we don't want to waste anything, so we'll just save that for the next time we make soap. I've put the leftovers in a baggie, and I'm only going to measure out about a half a cup of oatmeal. because that's all I'm going to use in this recipe. It's just a half a cup. So the rest of it goes in this baggie again for later. And a good thing to do when you've pulverized oats like this is put these in the freezer. Because once you've had a grain open and you've granulized it up like this, it'll stay fresher if you throw it in the freezer. Okay, so our excess oatmeal is in the freezer, and this is what we're going to use for our soap. The next thing we're going to do is measure out our fragrance oil. I love doing this because I love smelling the fragrance as I'm making the soap. I'm going to take my Corelware bowl, and I'm going to place it on the scale, and I'm going to move my measuring so that with the weight of the bowl it's at 0. And for this recipe we're going to need 4 ounces of fragrance. So I'm going to just pour out the 4 ounces of fragrance. There we go. And we'll be adding a couple ounces of olive oil to this later, just to give it a little bit of a base to incorporate into our soap a little later on, but we're going to set that off to the side for now. The last thing we're going to do to get ready for making soap is to line our molds. Now, this was one of the very first molds that we created when we were first making soap. It has 2 hinges on this and a door that opens. It's really important to have a door like this that will open, because when you make your soap and you pour your soap in, when it's ready to be taken out of the mold, you're going to have a vacuum underneath it, and it's going to be very difficult unless you drill a couple of holes, which is also another idea. It's going to be very difficult to lift it out. I personally don't want to have the holes drilled underneath in case I have some kind of a leak and I don't want my soap leaking out. So I prefer to have the door. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to line our mold. And I'm going to show you a neat trick to lining the mold with the freezer paper. First I pull out the paper, and I kind of can see the outline of my mold underneath here. And I try to go about the same distance away. I'm going to turn this off on each side. And then I'm going to take my finger and run it along the edge of this mold. This is going to give me the bottom base of the mold. I'm going to make it very easy to use just one piece. Before doing this, discovering that this is a great way to do it, I used to layer a couple of different pieces of paper in there. Before discovering that this worked really great, I used to lay a couple of pieces of paper in there and tape it all together. But I found that one sheet of paper will work great with these molds. It works great with the larger mold also. We just end up having a longer sheet of paper. I'm cutting it a diagonal right up to the corner of that outline that I made with my finger. And then, this is just going to get pushed right down in. It always takes a little bit of finagling to figure out. And these corners are going to bend to get them in. Once you get it started, that goes in pretty easily. There we go. Now I'm going to use some masking tape. To tape. Now, one other spot handy to use your scissors is right up here at the top once you got this in, because then this will just lay back nice and flat. Now that piece is ready. Do the same over in this corner. That piece is ready. If I'm really good, I will cut my original piece so that there aren't any edges that go over the top like this necessarily, because this is a tall mold and I know my soap's not going to come all the way to the top. Usually in the bigger molds, though, they do go all the way over. I cut that a little off. There we go. It's a little time consuming. That's why it's my least favorite thing to do in making soap. But hey, if you have a 13-year-old around your house, teach them how to do it and you'll never have to do this either. Okay, we got those extra corners down here. Now we're going to tape that up nice and slick so that we don't have any seepage of the soap. So I'm going to start right down in this corner and get that taped right down in there. Sometimes, if you don't get it in there good, it does leak out, and we don't want that. I'm having a Rachel Ray moment. Okay, there you have it. Our mold's all ready to go.